Happy Wednesday, sixth graders. How you doing? We're halfway through the week. You're making it. You're doing it. I'm proud of you. We're having a great week exploring ancient Greece so far. Let's keep it up and let's look at the culture and daily life of people living in ancient Athens. So, life in Athens was greatly shaped by the resources that it had from its geographic location. And this led it to have a very successful economy. So it's located on the sea, it being in the western part of Greece. It's right borders the Aegean Sea, and it's on the most southern part of the Balkan Peninsula where it kind of juts out. So it's almost a peninsula on a peninsula, if that makes sense. So it borders a lot of water, and there's a lot of natural harbors there, which means that it can have a lot of sea trade. And the Athenians are going to become great navigators of the seas and travel by boat a great deal. And being great navigators, they're able to build boats that are successful for traveling all throughout the Mediterranean world for trade, especially to get a lot of the resources that they don't have, since they don't have a lot of great farmland in the area. They also use it to build up an enormous navy, and one of the best navies in the world, especially after defeating Persia. We saw that the Athenian fleet is able to just crush the Persians during the Persian War, during the Battle of Salamis, and that dominance will continue and allow them to control all the trade routes, which will allow Athens to become very, very, very wealthy. And by pouring all that money into the city of Athens, since they were a democratic society, that money and wealth is really enjoyed by a great deal of its citizens. And you throw in the fact that you have so much money coming into the city because of trade, and the fact that they use a huge amount of slave labor in Athens. The citizens, the voting public of Athens, the men who are citizens who can make the decisions, they have a lot of free time, a lot of leisure time. And they're not lazy. The Athenians are definitely not lazy with their free time. As you remember, their patron goddess was Athena, and they really valued wisdom and learning. So with this wealth and this prosperity, on the back of slave labor, Athens will become a center for art, music, math, science, invention, engineering, philosophy, playwriting, you name it. This famous painting of the school in Athens that was painted in the Italian Renaissance shows a lot of the great thinkers of ancient Greece. We'll explore it in a lot more detail later, but you can see Sophocles writing plays, Homer writing his epic poetries, Euclid and Pythagorean pretty much inventing geometry. We can see Plato and Aristotle debating the philosophy, so on and so forth. So they're able to have all of this great thinking and all these ground. On top of it, that money means that they can invest into building up their city. And Athens will become a majorly advanced city with some of the best architecture on the planet. The reading doesn't get into this too much, but I figured I'd take this as an opportunity, since we're talking about their building, and talk about the most famous building and symbol of Athens, and that is the Parthenon. The Parthenon is a temple to Athena, and it was a complex, meaning many different buildings that were built into this enormous hill, or acropolis, that is the largest hill inside a city. Often in Greek cities, wherever their highest point of land, or acropolis, is where they'd build their central temple to their patron god. And this area on the Acropolis, in a lot of ways, became the cultural center of the city. Socrates would have classes on the side of the hill. This is just the heart of everything that is classical Athens, especially during its golden age. If you were to go inside of it, it was just as marvelous inside. No, that is not the actual temple of the Parthenon today. That's actually a recreation of it that's in Nashville, Tennessee, of all places. It's built out of wood, but designed to look like it did back then. Um, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, art, military strategy, cunning. She is there in ivory and gold. And again, the goddess of wisdom, who literally is born by cutting herself out of the head of Zeus. She's born from the head god's brain. That's how wise she is. In mythology, Athena never marries, never has any sort of lover or anything like that. So the Parthenon takes its name from meaning maiden's quarters, like Athena's home. Just get a view of what it looks like now and what it looked like today. The Parthenon today, over here, looks a lot more banged up than it did back in ancient times. Back in ancient times, there's a lot more color. It was a lot more well constructed and larger. The Ottoman Turks, unfortunately, when they controlled the area of Greece and Athens, used the area of the Parthenon as an armory to store explosives. And during a war with Venice, the Venetians bombed the area and it set off all the explosions, and a good deal of the Parthenon was unfortunately destroyed. The Parthenon definitely had a lot of different looks throughout history after the fall of Greek civilization. At one point it was a Christian church. Another point it was an Islamic mosque. So it's had a lot of different faces besides just being a temple to Athena. Today, it is probably the biggest tourist site in ancient Greece to go and visit. So now let's talk about if you were an average dude living in ancient Athens. Hey, I'm an average dude living in Athens. What's up? See that guy? Anyway, the male citizens of Athens spend their days mostly outside of the home. They're not really at their house with their family too often. They're out and about making business deals. Working if they were not among the wealthy and the elite, working as merchants or artisans, going to the market, meeting in public squares to debate philosophy and politics, but also working on building projects, working on the arts. We're going to when we look at the Golden Age, you're going to see some of the amazing art that the Greek citizens, the Athenian citizens rather, during the Golden Age produce, from sculpture to pottery to architecture. It is something else. But remember that they were able to live this way, this life of leisure and inventing and learning and creating, because it was on the backs of slave labor who did most of the tasks, the hard tasks around their households, and did all the growing of food that was produced that the Greeks would use for trade. Like, for example, the grapes and olives and the wool. If you were a woman living in Athens, you were kind of imprisoned to your home. You were not allowed to leave very often. You were expected to stay in your home and your house and your property and run the home, caring for the home, domestic chores, and raising your children. And Athenian women, like unfortunately many women in different areas of the world, are treated by property, first as property of their fathers, often being betrothed as part of military, as part of business deals, and then eventually they're property of their husbands. And this was not uncommon, but we're going to see that there will be exceptions to the rule in Greece, namely in Sparta. Spoiler alert. If you're a kid in Athens, if you're wealthy, you'd usually send your boys to school where they would learn everything that you learn: reading, writing, math, science, culture. If you were non-wealthy, you usually try to teach your child a trade where they would, pretty much apprentice, learning to be an artisan a stone worker, a skilled worker, carpenter, so on and so forth, a merchant. At age 18, all Athenian males are citizens and then have all the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. They can vote, they can serve in the assembly, they also are expected to serve in the military, jury, so on and so forth. Athenian girls were mostly educated at home. They were educated at home. They were, once again, then not allowed to go to school if there was a school available. They weren't allowed. And pretty much their education was focused on what they were allowed to do as adult women, caring for children and caring for the home. Although there were a select few Athenian women or that would become priestesses, most of the religious activities in Athens were coordinated by women, and a few select Athenian girls would be selected to be groomed and educated in becoming a priestess. So my question for you today: how did the wealth built through Athens shape its culture and the everyday life of its citizens? Answer your question in the comment section below. I look forward to reading them. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. Thanks a lot.